There are reports of fierce fighting between Taliban and resistance fighters around Panjshir. An emboldened Taliban has mounted another offensive against... And news just coming in, the Panjshir resistance movement claims they have neutralized more than 100 Taliban fighters. The resistance movement claims that Taliban has been defeated in yet another operation that was mounted. Now they've claimed that heavy losses have been suffered by the Taliban that targeted Panjshir from 3 different axes. They forced the Taliban to step back. This is what the resistance claims. Reuters has quoted Taliban saying that they have surrounded Panjshir in an effort to get the resistance to the negotiations table. We are told that Afghanistan's caretaker President Amrullah Saleh, who is at Panjshir, has said that the resistance in Panjshir is not just for the sake of Panjshir, and that it is not possible to run today's Afghanistan with illiterate and vengeful people, unquote. This is the statement that has just come in from Amrullah Saleh, the fighter on the resistance fighters are fighting at this point of time. He is the caretaker president of Afghanistan. But let's quickly listen in to Fahim Dasti, one of the spokespersons of Ahmad Masood, the resistance commander.
In the past 40 hours, Taliban have had some offensive to the Hawak High Pass from the Andarab Valley of Baghla. From our side, there were local forces of Andarab, different districts of Andarab, local forces of Panjshir, as well as the ANSF forces. They have defended very well. They have defeated Taliban on that front. Taliban have lost 40 of their personnel, another 35 of them were wounded. 4 armies of Taliban were destroyed, 2 rangers of Taliban were destroyed, and they did not succeed on their offensive, and they did not advance even a kilometer. September 1st, 2021, Panjshir.
And a top Al-Qaeda commander has resurfaced in Afghanistan. Aminul Haq was a key aide, the security in charge of Osama bin Laden in the Tora Bora mountains. He returned to a hero's welcome in Kandahar. The Al-Qaeda is already talking about liberation of Kashmir. The question remains, how serious is the threat, given that the United States and Afghanistan army left behind lakhs of assault rifles, night vision devices, secure communication equipment, ammunition and body armor, all now in the hands of Taliban, and the Jaish-e-Mohammed is seeking these weapons and fighters for Kashmir. If the nightmare of history repeating itself had an image, you are looking at it. The man on your television screen is Aminul Haq, a top Al-Qaeda leader, a close aide of Osama bin Laden. Seen here being welcomed back to his native Nangarhar province after it fell to the Taliban. If the lightning return of the Taliban wasn't a big enough confirmation of America's 2 decades failure, this phase should exponentially haunt Washington, D.C. and the rest of the world. Especially at a time when the US president has declared for the 2nd time in weeks that Al-Qaeda has been destroyed. In a second sharp irony, Aminul Haq, who was Osama bin Laden's security chief in Afghanistan's Tora Bora mountains, emerges from the shadows right before the 20th anniversary of 9/11. It was this man who's understood to have helped the Al-Qaeda founder escape US forces in 2002 by moving him out of Tora Bora in eastern Afghanistan to Waziristan in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The Tora Bora cave complex high up in the mountains was where the senior Al-Qaeda leadership was holed up at the time. His role in helping the world's most wanted terrorist Osama bin Laden escape was described in former Pakistan President General Pervez Musharraf's memoir in the line of fire based on information from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the third highest ranking member of the Al-Qaeda. By stepping out and welcoming the Taliban, the Al-Qaeda has signaled something that the US Central Intelligence Agency will take weeks to digest. For starters, claims that Al-Qaeda had been wiped out are now directly questionable. Even if one were to take American declaration that the Al-Qaeda had been weakened beyond repair, the fact that Osama's top aide is now in the warm embrace of the friendly Taliban means they can recuperate. The enormous weapon harvest left by the United States also means that Al-Qaeda can quickly rearm itself easily. But the development isn't just a wake-up call for the United States, but directly for India as well. The Al-Qaeda has sent up a declaration for war for an Islamic caliphate that includes Kashmir. A detailed statement issued by Al-Qaeda after Taliban's takeover is a call to arms to liberate so-called Islamic land from the clutches of the enemies of Islam. O Allah, liberate the Levant, Somalia, Yemen, Kashmir. Could the face of Aminul Haq signal the rebirth of once most feared terrorist organization? And has the new world given them even more potency and lethal potential? Bureau Report, India Today. Look at the numbers. Taliban are armed with 600,000 American assault rifles, thousands of night vision devices, body armor, helmets, drones, and now brothers in arms Al-Qaeda talk of Kashmir next. So how real is the threat? How potent is the threat? Joining me on the show on two aspects, the military aspect and the internal security aspect, are two of the finest voices on the subject. Lieutenant General Rakesh Sharma, he served extensively in Jammu Kashmir and in Ladakh, and of course SP Vaid, former Director General of the Jammu and Kashmir Police. General Sharma, your appreciation. US President Joe Biden claimed that Al-Qaeda was decimated on the 2nd of May 2011. Is Al-Qaeda a potent threat today? Point one. Point two, Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar reached out to the Taliban in Kandahar. How potent is this threat and how quickly is it likely to manifest itself along their line of control?
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for inviting me. Let's be pragmatic now. I think Taliban are in the chair, in the saddle for a long time to come, and we have to prepare for it. And as Taliban gets governance across in whichever form they do, there would be many more people like Dr. Aminul Haq who has come out, will come out of their cells, and wherever they are hiding, maybe in North Waziristan or wherever in Peshawar, they will be back into fold. Even maybe Al-Zawahiri in one of these days will be back into fold, and they will be all making noises of the same kind there. So what we have to understand, that there will be plenty of these people who have taken to ground for a very long time, maybe 10 odd years, who will be back and who will be talking and who will be threatening, like Kashmir has been threatened today, and Somalia and Yemen and other places.
Sure.
There will be much more threats. There will be large amount of information warfare, new narratives being created, and we have to prepare for it. And also, as you rightly pointed out, maybe Jaish-e-Mohammed or Lashkar-e-Taiba, they will also want to take. There is a glee, there is a happiness that you read in Pakistan. You read their media, written media, spoken media, you see the social media. Okay. There is a general happiness that, we will be able to target other areas even towards their east. So now, of course, that's your first question. There would be problems here in times to come. Second, is it a threat? Yes, pragmatically, there is a threat. Now, is it a threat similarly as it manifested in 1996 to 2001? Well, that we have to study. It may not be in those forms. We have changed. Many things have changed over a period of time. But having said that, there is a threat.
So you say the threat remains. We'll come to the manifestation of that threat in just a moment. But Mr. Vaid, it's the mindset, it's the ideology, it's the thinking, the glee that General talks about, that this ideology or this mindset has defeated two superpowers, erstwhile Soviet Union then and the United States now. Will this be used to indoctrinate youngsters here? Now, it's not just the terrorists with weapons at the line of control, but using Afghanistan to brainwash young men and turn them into low-cost cannon fodder. Is that the real threat now?
Yes, there's no doubt what you are saying. In fact, these calls for global jihad, what has happened in Afghanistan, the victory of Taliban, the calls for global jihad are coming up, and this will have impact on the psychology of terrorist organization all across the Asia and the rest of the world. Obviously, the morale of these terrorist organizations have seen a boost, and it would be much easier now to recruit young boys, citing how jihadis have achieved victory against two superpowers. So we need to be very, very careful. In fact, it is a big challenge for countries like India. And but let me mention here, things are not of 1990s. Today's India is not India of 1990s. Let this be very, very clear. Before 2001, if you recall, the fence, there was no fence at all.
Yes.
We had a LOC and IB only manually guarded. Today, the almost whole of the fence has come up. It is well guarded. It has surveillance equipment in high-tech equipment on it.
Sir, the fence can stop fighters. The fence may be able to stop weapons where terrorists now have drones, to perhaps use drones to send in weapons. But it's the ideology and the threat. But that fair point that you raised, the fair point, a difference between 1990s and today. General Sharma, we have the AIOS or the multi-tier security grid, anti-infiltration obstacle system. So will terrorists from Afghanistan or terrorists from Pakistan armed with those weapons find it easier or more difficult to infiltrate now, given our security position and the number of soldiers in 1990 and the number of soldiers deployed today?
Yeah, Gaurav, let me address it in three ways. First is that there ought to be an event or series of events being created that will exhort the radicalized youth, whatever exists in the valley and other places, to rise up. So there has to be a motivation. Taliban in Afghanistan is a motivation, but they'll have to create an event or series of events or raise the tempo in India that creates that kind of radicalization. One. Second, there is an AIOS, there is a fence, there are measures being changed from, as rightly pointed out by Mr. Vaid. There are measures being brought across into bear in the course of last 25 years are different. And that may be challengeable. Infiltration may be challengeable and we may be able to hold on. But now rightly pointed out by you, third, is that there are a variety of methods here. If there are $85 billion of weapons left behind by the Americans, there are whole lot of weapons by the Afghan army which have been left in many places picked up by Taliban. Well, then there is a surfeit of weaponry and ammunition available, and it just has to be conveyed. And to convey it across, there can be many methods. It can be off the high seas. It can also be through drones or just kind of some methods of passage or tunnels or whatever they want to do. So the third part is, yes, weaponry will be the first thing that they would like to push into our country. Even if the terrorists don't come, it's the weaponry which will be followed. So we have to now address it in all three forms. First is radicalization.
Yes.
Second, or even to radicalize it more. Second is through the fence or through the line of control. And third is across the international border or the coastal waters where weapons will be pushed in. So we have to
weapons in numbers. Okay, and the point you could say, spoke of was creating an event. Mr. Vaid, you've been Director General of Jammu and Kashmir, and through your service from an SP to the DG, you know how easy it is to create events, to put out a story, and which leads to a lot of stuff that's happening. How do you counter that? And now, indoctrination on social media, mobile phones being used as a weapon to turn minds, talking of the kind of interpretation of religious texts as done by Taliban or Al-Qaeda. Is it time for India to start countering that? Religious preachers to be countering that already? And sir, not just in the valley.
Gaurav, in fact, this is the area where a lot emphasis need to be paid. In fact, if you see much of these recruitments and much of the radicalization is taking place in madrasas, and I think a very close watch needs to be maintained. Now we have a new education policy. Here is a time to see that these are properly taken care of, and the youth does not fall into the hands. Another area which is very important is use of social media, how that needs to be monitored, how events of Afghanistan are being projected, and how the call is being given for a jihad and joining, and all these things need to be very closely monitored. So similarly, the involvement of civil society, social organizations,
yes,
religious organizations, they all need to be involved. I think this one area which needs a great emphasis, not only in Kashmir, whole of India. In fact, you have problems. Some of the boys even joining from Kerala and Bengal. You
Absolutely.
had reports that some of them have gone towards Afghanistan. So it will be a big challenge for a country like India with a composite population.
And over the next several days and weeks, we will continue to highlight the challenges and efforts that need to be taken to counter these challenges. For the moment, General Sharma and Mr. Vaid, as always, many thanks for joining me here on India First. There's another issue that's being discussed very extensively, and that is, should India be engaging with the Taliban? And if so, at what level? Should government of India recognize the system that comes up in Taliban in the next 24 to 48 hours, over the next several days and weeks? The opposition wants the government to clarify its stand on engagement with Taliban a day after the government said that Taliban sought a meeting with the government, and Sher Abbas Stanikzai, the head of Taliban's political office, met India's ambassador to Qatar at Doha. Our Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan gets us more.
Taliban deliberates its power equations in Afghanistan. Several meetings are on with the focus on government structure in its newly acquired country. A day after India made its first contact with the Taliban, 11 prominent personalities, including former ministers, have written to the Narendra Modi government to continue engaging with the Taliban. In a statement under the banner Indian Friends of Afghanistan, they said, as the Afghans seek to embark on a path of peace, national reconciliation and national reconstruction, Indians must stand in solidarity with them. The signatories also said all the countries in South Asia, especially India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, should strive to make it a region of peace, harmony and collective progress. The statement also welcomes India and the Taliban's first official contact on Tuesday, where a senior member of the Taliban leadership, Sher Mohammad Abbas Stanikzai, met Indian envoy to Qatar, Deepak Mittal, in Doha. As the Taliban bats for international legitimacy, the lack of clarity over UN sanctions may have serious ramifications. Taliban is on the UN Security Council's radar that continues to place several sanctions on top of Taliban leaders, even though Taliban is not specifically listed on UN sanctions list.
They've had a very dubious past. They've had contacts with anti-India terror groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed. We will see how those things and how those assurances play out on ground. And if indeed the Taliban live up to the assurances which they have been giving, and then I don't think there will be any great hesitation or reluctance in moving forward with the Taliban.
The dilemma of recognizing the Taliban government haunts the world.
Afghanistan's territory should not be used to threaten or attack any country or to shelter train terrorists or plan or finance terrorist acts.
You can't have different yardsticks for different organizations. If they're a terror organization, why are you talking to them? If they are not a terror organization, why are you banning their bank accounts? Why are you not recognizing their government? Make up your mind what it is. I am not the decision maker.
The Taliban now have what they brutally fought for. The world will now have to wait and watch what they make of this. Bureau Report, India Today.
Well, that is all I have time for on India First this evening.